Hi everyone, in this video we are going to learn about aperture. But before we start, I would like to talk about what is an aperture. An aperture is the mechanical opening of the camera. This is the opening in the lens which allows light to travel into the camera. Aperture control is referred to as the f value inside your camera, which allows you to take control over what amount of light you want to pass into the camera. The less the aperture value or the f value in your camera, the wider the opening will be. And the more the aperture value or the f value, the smaller the opening will be. Now it's time to talk about an open aperture. An open aperture allows more light to pass through, which obviously gives a good low light performance. It will also give a good blur in the background and gives a really good cinematic look. If you want to go for a good cinematic look and a very good low light performance, then I would recommend you to go for a 50mm prime lens. Why I am recommending the 50mm prime lens? The main reason is it has an aperture value of f1.8. But the normal kit lens has a lower f value of f4.0. So that's why a normal kit lens gives less low light performance. Now it's time to talk about a closed aperture and how it is going to affect your footage or exposure. Narrow or tight aperture or a closed aperture allows less light to pass through the camera. And that's why it has got a very bad performance in low light environment. It also gives less blur in the background and that doesn't look like a normal cinematic view. So for shooting a cinematic video with good depth of field and good lighting, you should go for a wide open aperture. If you want good portrait photos or if you want good cinematic photos, then you should always go for a lower aperture value. Because of the lower aperture value in the 50mm prime lens, I always love to take photos in the night using that. I'm sure now you guys must have got the idea about how aperture controls the exposure and what is the meaning of an open aperture and a closed aperture. Now it's time to move on to the next video and learn more about the exposure control. As we have finished the first part of the exposure triangle, which is the aperture, now it's time to move on to the second one, which is the ISO. So let's move on to the next one.